He promised to free money from banks and governments. He said algorithms would replace trust. For a moment, he controlled a $50 billion crypto empire. Then, in 1 week, $40 billion vanished. This is how Do Kwon built Terra and Luna, and how his God complex erased it all. In December 2025, inside a federal courtroom in Lower Manhattan, Do Kwon stood in a yellow prison jumpsuit before Judge Paul A. Engelmeyer. 3.5 years earlier, he had been a hero of decentralized finance. His followers called themselves lunatics. His companies controlled cryptocurrencies named Terra and Luna, Earth and Moon, symbols of inevitability and balance. At its peak, his ecosystem was worth more than $50 billion. Now he was apologizing to retirees, parents, and small business owners who had lost everything. 15 years in federal prison. This was a fraud on an epic generational scale, the judge said. But to understand how one man erased $40 billion, you have to go back to the promise. Kwon was the archetype Silicon Valley loves. Born in Seoul, educated at Stanford, brief stints at Apple and Microsoft, brilliant, confident, sharp-tongued online. In 2018, he co-founded Terraform Labs with Daniel Shin. Their ambition was revolutionary: reinvent money. At the center of that vision was TerraUSD, UST, a stablecoin designed to stay worth exactly $1. Most stablecoins hold reserves of real dollars to maintain stability. UST didn't. It relied on an algorithm and a sister token called Luna. The mechanism sounded elegant. If UST fell below $1, traders could swap it for $1 worth of Luna, reducing supply and pushing the price back up. If UST rose above $1, the system worked in reverse. No central bank, no reserves but just code. Kwon called it self-correcting, mathematical, and unbreakable. Investors called it genius. Prosecutors would later call it a lie. The first crack appeared in May 2021. UST briefly lost its peg, dropping below 92 cents. Under Kwon's theory, arbitrage should have restored balance automatically. It didn't. Behind the scenes, the protocol had a hidden throttle. During heavy redemptions, fees surged, making the system unusable. The algorithm could not withstand serious pressure, so Kwon intervened. According to federal prosecutors, he struck a secret deal with a high-frequency trading firm. They purchased tens of millions of dollars worth of UST to artificially restore the peg. In one 30-minute window, they accounted for more than 90% of purchases in a key market. The peg returned. Publicly, Kwon declared victory. The algorithm had passed its stress test. Internally, he admitted something else. Without intervention, they would have been finished. But the market never heard that version. Instead, confidence surged. Anchor Protocol, Terra's lending platform, offered nearly 20% annual returns on UST deposits. In a world of near zero interest rates, it felt irresistible. By early 2022, roughly 70% of all UST in circulation sat inside Anchor. The yield was unsustainable. Anchor paid more to depositors than it earned from borrowers. Terraform quietly subsidized the difference. Money poured in anyway. UST's market cap exploded from $2 billion to $18 billion in a year. Luna climbed toward $30 billion. Combined, the ecosystem crossed $50 billion. Kwon mocked critics online. He called skeptics poor. He tweeted confidently about deploying more capital. The myth grew stronger with every rally, until May 2022. UST began slipping again. This time the market was 9 times larger. There was no quick fix. No small capital injection could restore confidence. As UST fell below $1, the algorithm began minting Luna at an exponential rate to defend the peg. Supply exploded. Price collapsed. It was a death spiral. On May 9th, as panic spread, Kwon tweeted, deploying more capital, steady lads. Within days, $40 billion in market value vanished. In South Korea alone, hundreds of thousands of investors were exposed. Globally, savings evaporated, college funds disappeared, retirement accounts were wiped out. The Moon King had lost control of gravity. The collapse revealed something deeper than a failed algorithm. It exposed a pattern. Prosecutors alleged that Kwon misled investors about nearly every major component of his empire. Mirror Protocol, marketed as a decentralized platform for trading synthetic stocks, was allegedly manipulated by trading bots funded and controlled by Terraform. The Lunar Foundation Guard, presented as an independent reserve body defending UST's peg, was effectively under Kwon's personal control. When UST collapsed, hundreds of millions of dollars in reserve assets were allegedly redirected through accounting maneuvers that benefited Terraform. Then came the flight. As investigations intensified in South Korea and the United States, Kwon moved across borders: Singapore, Serbia, Montenegro. In March 2023, he was arrested at an airport in Montenegro using a forged Costa Rican passport while attempting to board a flight to the United Arab Emirates. The global manhunt ended with extradition to the United States. The God complex met jurisdiction. In court, victims' letters painted the human cost. "I struggled to keep up with payments and responsibilities," one wrote. "Everything I had worked for was erased." These were not hedge funds. They were ordinary people who believed in a vision. Kwon didn't promise luxury. He promised liberation. A financial system without gatekeepers, without fees, without banks. That promise made the collapse feel personal. Because this wasn't just volatility, it was betrayal. Kwon eventually pleaded guilty to deceiving investors about the mechanics of Terra's financial system. The sentence was 15 years. He joined a growing list of crypto executives facing prison time in the aftermath of 2022's market collapse, including Sam Bankman-Fried and Alex Mashinsky. The industry that once celebrated being beyond regulation found itself firmly inside a courtroom. So what erased $40 billion? Not just an algorithm, not just leverage. It was belief combined with arrogance. Kwon believed he had engineered a self-sustaining monetary system. When early cracks appeared, he covered them instead of confronting them. When markets rewarded risk, he amplified it. When confidence wavered, he doubled down. The God complex wasn't about ego alone. It was about thinking code could replace accountability. The Terra ecosystem relied on a fragile loop. Confidence drove value. Value reinforced confidence. Once trust broke, nothing remained underneath. That too on a huge scale. $40 billion were erased in days. Hundreds of thousands affected. In 2018, before the empire was built, Kwon exchanged emails about crypto markets. There were good returns to be had, he wrote, depending on one's moral constitution. The wink mattered. 7 years later, the bill arrived. And well, the Moon King fell. And gravity, in the end, did what algorithms could not. It pulled everything back to Earth.